Click. I feel like I should apologise in advance for my camping hair and my sore throat. It's all down to sauna karaoke, so I apologise. I'm Ruth from Hisby Food, and I'm transforming the food industry by reinventing supermarkets. I kind of figure someone's got to do it because the big supermarkets are making society foot the bill for the way they do business. In other words, well, I guess they're taking the piss. Did you know that 60 pence in every pound spent in British shops goes to the big supermarkets? But where do their millions and billions in profits go? Well, not to suppliers, you get 9 pence in the pound, or to workers, you get minimum wage, or even to customers, you get poor quality and service. People are realising that when we spend our money in this way with the big supermarkets, we're just voting for more of the same. They're devaluing workers, they're devaluing suppliers, and they're making bad food normal. And all because they put short-term profit before everything else. So my sister and I, Amy, got a bit fed up with this and thought we'd do something about it. In 2010, we decided to reinvent the way supermarkets do business. Well, why not? Why not? It seemed like a great idea. After all, supermarkets are only how they are because people made them that way. There's no like immutable law of the universe or nature that says this is how food retail needs to be, right? So why not? Why not reinvent it? So we started our supermarket from a starting point of how it should be. And we figured that if we get this right, we could spark a supermarket revolution. After all, Tesco started with one store, Sainsbury's started with one store. Why not Hisby? So inventing our store from a starting point of how it should be. We sell everyday good food that's just really well sourced, and we don't overcharge for it, which is kind of revolutionary in food retail. We divvy up the money differently, so instead of making shareholders and directors rich, it's all about giving 68p in the pound to suppliers, paying people the living wage, and paying charging affordable prices for good food, because most of the time you're getting conned for that stuff. We don't overcharge for good food, and we stand up for responsible, fair, and sustainable sourcing because that's just how it should be. We also do crazy-ass mad things like treating our workers nicely, so they're nice to the customers, and creating a happy working environment for the store. Thank you, I like that. So, unfortunately, also revolutionary. So 2 years in nearly, our store has turned over £1.6 million, and it's commercially viable and stable, and customers love it. Most importantly, customers love it. Why? Because we put how it should be at the heart of what we do, and our business model is created on putting happiness first, putting happiness before profits. And I have a very big dream, and the dream is to build a national chain that truly transforms the UK food industry with fair, sustainable and responsible sourcing practices. And that's, for me, quite a big thing, but I've made that purpose my priority in life. But when Amy and I sat down in 2010 and decided to invent a supermarket, we didn't have a bloody clue what we were doing. We only knew that it started with the principle of how a supermarket should be and our values. So what we did is we created a concept. We created a concept that we thought would disrupt how it is and create a version of how it should be. And so what I want to talk about today is throwing grenades, because that's what we did. We created a concept, we chucked it into the status quo, and we plan to blow this shit up. I can say that again, I like that. We plan to blow this shit up. I keep looking at my notes because I'm so damn nervous. Okay, so I'm going to share with you my experience of throwing grenades. It's about change. Change comes in two forms, right? So you can either change stuff from within the system, from within how it is, and slowly move towards the change. And I think that we see big supermarkets do that, trying to bolt on good stuff to the existing business model, and it always looks fake, right? Because it is. Or you can reinvent, you can recreate, and you can redefine how it is with how it should be. And you can create a concept of happiness before profits. I was supposed to show you this picture a little while ago, but now I'm on change. Or you can create something from new. You can create something out of nothing and reinvent it and chuck a grenade. And I call this idea disruptive innovation. And this is what I'm doing. I'm throwing this grenade into the food industry. And this is my dream of transformation. This is my dream of destructive innovation. And so I'm going to talk to you about what I've learned about destructive innovation over the last few years. One, start before you're ready. Like I said, Amy and I didn't have a clue about how to start a supermarket chain. I'd worked in one when I was 18. We didn't have a clue. But we figured it could be done, and we knew it needed to be done. So we sat down in our flat in 2010 and started. But we knew we needed a lot of help. For a start, we needed £200,000, and we only had about £8.50. And we needed a store manager. We thought we probably needed a store manager, and we probably needed loads of food and people to work in it. So we did need a lot of help, and it was scary, but we thought what we needed to do was just get the concept out there. So we developed the vision. We just got the vision out there, and it's scary, right? Because you're sending this vision of an ethical supermarket out there, but you haven't thought it all through properly. There was no branding, there was no business plan at that point. We set out the vision and we got it out there before we were ready. And it's scary. But it all started with a blog from this desk. This was Hisby HQ for 3 years, aka our home and office. And we were geeked out at this desk for 3 years, basically. Business planning, brand building, rabble raising, crowdfunding, working from this desk. And we even had the cushions like Hisby colours. We were that sad. But we were totally immersed in this brand, in this time, and in this weird creative space that we created in order to make this thing be. That was a long sentence. Anyway, we started with a blog. We used the blog to connect with other people all over the country and locally. People who just wanted to see someone throw a grenade at supermarkets, people into food activism, people working in supermarkets, people in the local community, people who are suppliers and sourcing stuff, and farmers who just felt that there was this sense of injustice around and how supermarkets worked. And over time, through this blog, we grew Hisby into an influential voice in our world, and people started to connect with us on what we were saying. And we developed the plans and the concept as we went. We co-created it with people from this sense of this vision. And what was interesting is all of the money, the store manager, the suppliers, everything came from the connections we made in these 3 years. So it became the creative source. The vision became our creative source. So I would say the important thing is to start. Don't put it off. You don't need all the branding and the business planning to be perfect. You just get your vision out there, because when you get your vision out there and you set out your vision of how it should be, people will come and gravitate towards you, and you will attract the resources that you need to make it be. That just seems to be how it works. Build your lighthouse, switch the beam on, and people will come and help you. 2, build your crowd. Customers. We needed loads of customers. Thousands, actually. You need thousands of customers in order to deliver a shop with a turnover of over £1 million a year. And it was crucial, to have them from day one. You can't spend 35 grand on a load of perishable stock and have an empty shop. You can't let it build slowly. We realised it was about harnessing and motivating a crowd of committed customers before we opened, way before we opened. And so we wooed our crowd. Basically, we'd built up a lot of support in Brighton, and we did a crowdfunding campaign. So this was a crowdfunding campaign that raised £30,000 online and again became a beacon for what we wanted to achieve. We put up a cheap, silly video, which was basically us in the store appealing to people to buy money off vouchers for a shop that didn't exist yet. And we were in there, in this empty store, saying this is going to be an amazing, disruptive supermarket. And it's going to change the food industry, and explaining how we were going to do it. But we're surrounded by builders' crap and all stuff behind the shop. But people gave their money because they bought into the concept. And we had this idea that the day that we opened, the shop would be so rammed that we wouldn't be able to move. And that was the goal. That was the goal. People would know that we were coming. So we launched the crowdfunding campaign, raised 30 grand, used that money to leverage money from people like bankers who want to see that there's a social proof behind your idea. And we kept it going. We would update the crowdfunders with what was going on in the store. We blued out the windows. It's a massive store. It's 3,000 square feet. It's bigger than what you're thinking. And we blued out the windows of the store. We created this little cube at the front, which was like an office with a sofa in. And people that walked by would come in and have a chat with us on the sofa, and we'd show them what was going on behind. It was, a real tip with a refit. But they could see how we were building their store for them. And that worked really well. And I have to say, I think the crowdfunding is the best. The crowd building is the best thing we've ever done and the most fun thing. And now we will always follow the crowd. So when we open new stores, the first thing we do when we find a site is to switch on the crowdfunding. And if it hits the target and the crowd want it, the store happens. And it creates this customer base. And so I would say to you that disruptive innovation has the power to motivate people to get behind what you're doing because they just love it. They just fall in love with your idea and your concept, and you can sell vouchers for something that's not in existence yet. So use that, build your crowd, and we'll always follow the crowd. Share what inspired you. Share the moment that inspired you. Inspiration to me is an amazing word. Like, inspiration, to be inspired implies a physiological and positive transformation in a person. That's amazing. Inspiration, the act of inspiration, is to think and feel something, make someone think and feel something that they didn't feel before, right? That's transformative, that's incredible. And so we have, as businesses, people who are building businesses with purpose, an incredible ability to inspire. And what I found is that sharing the moment that inspired you, the moment that sparked that idea of creative energy, that moment of inspiration, rallies people to you and motivates them. So I'm going to explain a little bit about my moment of inspiration. It came in 2007 in this apartment in Barcelona. This was my apartment in Barcelona. This is my pool and my tennis court and my lovely home and my big terrace and everything in Barcelona. I was a big deal in FMCG at this time. I was in a big global company working for marketing and sales on loads of money and an expat contract. And I was loving it. I had loads of adventures and fun in this apartment. And then I was sitting on the balcony one day, and in a moment of absolute shattering clarity, realised that I wasn't happy. And it was a right bugger. Because I'd done everything right. I got the grades, I got the degree, I'd got the jobs, I got all the pay rises and the promotions, done everything I was supposed to do, got this great big job in Barcelona and all this money, and I wasn't happy. And I had to think about why, because either you ignore it, right, or you face up to it. And I realised that there was this deep and rumbling, lacking sense of purpose, and that it wasn't going away, and that I was suppressing a deeper dream. And that when I thought about it, I realised that I had this dream of that business could bring happiness to people and serve a social purpose and mean something and connect people through their values. So I had this dream, but I didn't talk about it because it doesn't exactly go over well in board meetings about quarterly profit reports. No one gives a shit about that kind of stuff in those businesses. Oh, that's a bit harsh. I'm bitter. So I had this feeling, and I realised, I looked at my job, and I realised I was basically a slave to Microsoft Office. I was basically just doing PowerPoints, Word, Excel spreadsheets, and I got really, really good at managing about 800 emails a day and meetings, and that was all I was doing. There was no creative space, there was no moment of inspiration, and it was just making me unhappy. So I got very honest about the kind of life I wanted to create and what I wanted to do. And I decided at that moment to create a business that would do good based on my purpose and make that purpose my priority in life. And I knew that that purpose would connect me to happiness and freedom. And I was lucky because I have an amazing sister who at this time was also rethinking purpose. And she helped me focus on this and make purpose my priority. Actually, when I think about it, Amy, my sister, has probably always been my biggest inspiration. But the biggest lesson I've learned is this one, and it's a very personal one. It's get blown up. Because when you throw this grenade and this dream of transformation, a very weird thing happens. The grenade takes it with you. And when I think about it, my real story isn't about me transforming the food industry, it's about me transforming me. And I'm increasingly thinking that's every part of every social entrepreneur's journey. It's an emotional roller coaster, but we don't talk about it. And I think we should. I think we should change that a bit. So I'm going to do something that's pretty uncomfortable for me and probably going to be a bit uncomfortable for you. I'm going to talk about my emotional roller coaster and what scared me because it helps me to get it out. And some of you might be going through some of this stuff and be able to relate, and it might help you. So consider this. You cannot transform the world without transforming yourself. Fact. Destructive innovation will take you on a journey of self-transformation. And it's a wonderful journey, but it's going to hurt. Throwing the grenade has taken me out of every corner of my comfort zone and made me face every level of my fears and self-doubt. It's as if life was saying to me, all right, Ruth, you crazy old badger. You want to reinvent supermarkets? You want to reinvent the food system? Well, that's going to take something. That's going to take you to change, because right now, your old machinery isn't up to it. And the way that you operate and the way you deal with your life isn't going to take you towards this dream. You've got to change, baby. But changing your machinery is painful. Now, I could just let the grenade drop, right? I could go, oh, I'm earning loads of money in FMCG. I'm just going to let the grenade drop because I'm scared of being blown up. But I won't, because I'm probably the most stubborn person you'll ever meet. And my will for this dream to be is far, far bigger than my fear of letting go of what holds me back. So I thought I would share what throwing my grenade did to me. This is us on opening day, December the 6th, 2013. And this was such a wonderful day, one of the best days of my life, because two sisters who'd sat down to invent a supermarket opened one. We invented it from nothing, and the opening day was amazing. We had hundreds of customers, politicians, councillors, family, friends, loads of love, loads of positive energy, everything that we had put out there. But behind this, oh, thank you. Behind this elation, I was wrecked, because this had pushed me to the absolute limits of my emotional and physical capabilities. I wasn't sleeping right. I was going through nights with my heart just beating with anxiety, and my health had suffered. I was knocking myself out with red wine to sleep. You know, it was pretty heavy, and I'd never experienced that stuff before. But why? Why? Because throwing the grenade made new and scary demands on me. But not only that, it made me face all my fears I had about throwing the grenade. All the fears and all the self-doubt that I had that had been successfully burying for a very long time all surfaced. And that's what happens. So my machinery at the time wasn't up to coping with this transformation. What do I mean by my machinery? I keep banging on about it. This is me and my sister as nippers. Aren't we cute? So when you're about 5 or 6 as a child, you start to develop your coping mechanisms for your environment and your personality. A lot of it's subconscious choice, but it's choice. And you start to create your machinery. And so, you know, you are a product partly of your circumstances. My particular circumstances, we were growing up on an estate and we were really skint, so we really didn't have much money. So I know what it's like to go without food and electricity and hot water, and not have clean clothes and not have toothpaste and stuff. I mean, 4 million kids grow up in the UK like this. It's not uncommon. And, you know, you get used to it. You get used to being ashamed and not going to school because you haven't got a clean uniform and your shoes don't fit. But that is partly what shaped me. But there was another element to it, because life was also quite scary and confusing. Because our environment at the time was completely dominated by somebody else's fear and fury. Fear and fury are different beasts. It's like fear is a bit cowardly. It sits in the corner, but it creates more and more fear, and it fills the home with fear. But fury is something else. Fury is destructive. Fury wants power and control, and it eats love. And it likes pain. And fury would run riot in our home, relentlessly at times, with violence and spite. And I've taken you to a heavy place. But it's cool, because I wouldn't have it any other way. But this is what shaped me. So I built the machinery in me that allowed me to survive this situation, allowed me to survive the chaos. I became highly resilient and fiercely dependent. Because I needed to take on adult worries. At 10, I was paying the bills and keeping the bailiffs out. And taking care of my sister. So I built this baby. We've all got one of these, by the way. My personal fortress of fear. The fortress is huge and black and foreboding. It's got chains around it in a drawbridge, which must be under here somewhere. And in it, we put stuff that scares us, and we keep stuff out that scares us. Anyway, I hid in there a lot. The best protection from the fury is to hide your feelings, because the fury uses your feelings against you. So I hid away anger and fear and pain. I numbed the need for love for a very long time and the ability to be loving. And I repressed all that and I hid it in the fortress of fear. But our machinery isn't just about our fears, it's also about our dreams. And I had, when I was 12, a very clear idea that I didn't have to live my life like this, that I could be something else. It didn't have to be like the mad adults that ran my life. I could do something else. And at 12, I created I created a spark that turned into a flame, and I put all of my passions and my energy into this vision. So I dreamed a life of, I was going to be a successful businesswoman with fantastic shoes, a great big car and loads of money. I didn't know what a successful businesswoman did, but I was pretty sure that she got loads of money. And so this became an obsessive vision. And I knew that money would fix my family and, money would take me out of the fury and the fear. So it became an obsession, and I built a personality around it, elements of probably which you see in me, of confidence, of positivity, of energy, of deep empathy, and things that would serve me in this dream. I've often wondered where the spark came from, because how does a little girl like that have the audacity to dream like this? I don't know where that spark comes from, because society doesn't give it to you. Society doesn't like poor kids because we're unruly and rude and stuff. But it came from somewhere, and I don't know where it came from, but I do know that this spark, this creative energy, this ability to create something out of nothing is something that somehow is available to all of us. Anyway, that's how I shaped my machinery from my dreams and my fears. And for 20 years, this machinery did a pretty good job. I kept a lot of shit down. And I was hardworking and determined and capable, and that all went over very well at work. I got the promotions, I got the pay rises. I decided to become a determined workaholic, so I was just pouring myself into that. And I didn't really fit in corporate life, and I knew that. But I got very good at burying stuff, so I just buried that whenever it came up. And like I say, it served me quite well. But at the moment that I realised I wasn't happy in Barcelona on the balcony, I realised how stupid it was that I was still being run by the dreams of a 12-year-old. It's like, I'm doing all this stuff because I'd decided to be a successful businesswoman with amazing shoes and a big car, and I had all that stuff. But I was being driven by something I invented when I was 12, right? How daft is that? So as you know, I swapped my vision for a new vision. I swapped my dream, but I didn't change my machinery. And this is my point. I didn't change my machinery, but I suddenly demanded a lot more of it. So that's why when I threw my grenade, it threw me. This is me looking happier than I was when my grenade threw. Just think about what that grenade demanded of me, right? So suddenly I had to stand up and share my vision and be a figurehead for Hisby. But I had this fear of being in front of people and being judged because I wasn't good enough. Because basically, I was hiding the fact that I wasn't some amazing budding social entrepreneur. I was just a poor kid off an estate. And if you knew the truth, you wouldn't like it. So, I was hiding that fear. And then, I didn't know how to be vulnerable and ask for help because I'd done everything myself for so long. But this dream demanded me to do a lot of that. And all these things I couldn't do myself that I had to ask for help for would drive me into anxiety and uncomfortable feelings about whether I was good enough. The grenade threw up a million tasks. Well, you know what it's like, right? You've got a to-do list, massive to-do list, and it's overwhelming. And if you've programmed yourself to just work harder and harder and harder and harder to get everything done, that's what you do, and you get exhausted. And so I was just throwing all my energy at it, trying to do a million things which weren't possible, but constantly feeling like I was letting Amy down. And then the grenade blew up my life savings and all my money and put me into debt. Now, what do you think that feels like to someone who is hardwired to be afraid of poverty? It's painful. So, my God, those 3 years were amazing, but I'm not going to pretend that it was all achievements and success and being a budding social entrepreneur, because there were moments of real fear and anxiety. But I get it now. Yeah. And now I find myself dismantling the bits of my machinery that don't serve me anymore, and building new bits that do serve me. So I understand my workaholic nature and I'm changing it. I'm redefining my relationship with money. I'm opening up the fortress of fear and sharing shit about myself, which feels good, if not a bit nerve-wracking. And it's all work in progress, but I have realised that when you see that your fears are all just stuff that you've invented along the way, and so are your limits, and you start to see that, they start to disappear. And that, I think, is the most powerful thing of all. I've decided that my dreams are bigger than my fear. It's that simple. And I'm letting it transform me. So know that you can't change the world without transforming yourself. When you throw destructive creation into this world, it demands a new you. A better you and a happier you, actually. Because if you look closely at the machinery and your fears and you see they're things you can let go of, then it happens. And you learn to love yourself and be more healthy and happy. So get blown up. It is a wonderful part of your journey. Let your dream transform you. And sometimes I think perhaps that's all this crazy world is, that we are just channels for our dreams. And we are just channels for this creative energy that's out there, this inspiration, this spark, this thing that wants to be in the world to make it how it should be. And if that's true, I love that idea, and my friends made it into a T-shirt for me. Maybe if we are just channels for this creative energy, then I'm up for it. If I'm just a channel for my dream of transforming the food industry, then let it be. I'm going to let it transform me. Let go of the fears, redefine my machinery. And maybe as well, by sharing my feelings and my vulnerability with you guys, I can also help other people throw their grenades. And that's it.